The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We're coming to you live from the Warner Center in Woodland Hills, California. This is the home for Autism Live. It is also the home for the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. Their world headquarters is here. They are located in more than 220 places around the United States with affiliates in other places, but their headquarters is here in Woodland Hills. Somebody mentioned the other day, you make it sound like it's the only place. No, it's everywhere. So I'm Shannon Penrod, and I'm excited to be here with you this morning. We've got a big show. How many doctors have I got for you today? Well, at least 3. And maybe more. So that's a pretty exciting thing. We're going to be here for the next 2 hours. I am going to tell you from the jump that I don't have Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh live for you, but I still have Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh for you. We're going to play an oldie but a goodie for Ask Dr. Doreen in just a few minutes. And then we're going to be back live the second hour with Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. We've got 2 amazing guests for you. We've got Dr. Blair Braden, who is a specialist with health solutions on autism and the brain and aging, which I think I'm excited to talk to him and see what that's all about. And then we've got Dr. Christine Cohen, and she is the author of this amazing book, Stand By Me, Empowering Bystanders to End Bullying in School. I know this is something that I'm concerned about and that many of you write in and talk about schools and what happens and how sometimes our kids are just, it's like they're fodder for, they're the easy target. That's the word I'm trying to say, easy target. And how do we prevent that? And we need to be proactive in lots of different ways, right? We need to help the kiddo to know what to do and what to say so that they can end it. But bullying doesn't happen in a vacuum. And if we don't train the people who are surrounding our kids in what to do to properly end bullying, then we're not really getting it done. And a lot of us, me included, have been very frustrated about the fact that schools are not more proactive. I know I certainly have heard, well, kids will be, oh, you know what I mean? Don't even get me started on that. But so this book is amazing, and to put this in the hands of somebody at your school who's like, well, we can't really do much, I think they could see that they could do a great deal. So Dr. Christine Cohen's going to be with us to talk about what this technique is and why it might be perfect for your child's school. Love it, love it, love it. Plus, Nancy's going to be here and we're going to cover a lot of news. Now, I just want to take a second to talk about a couple of things with you guys. Even when we are not live, you can write in questions. We try to get back to questions. If you ask your question and it doesn't appear that anybody answered it, it's very likely that we answered it live on the show. Because if we answer it live on the show, I don't also type a response for you. But if we don't get to your question, I do try to go back in the days afterwards. Sometimes it takes me till the weekend. You'll see sometimes that, I've typed in something at 5 a.m. on Sunday morning, but I do try to get back to all of your answers. Sometimes in the crawl on Facebook, it gets a little wishy-washy and something could be missed. So I want to remind you that there are lots of different ways that you can get in touch with us here on the show. Samantha's going to show them to you. You can try all these different ways, but then at the end, I'm also going to give you my personal email so that you can reach me if your question is not being answered. But there are many different ways to connect. Some of you are watching on Facebook at live, and we love that. Some of you are watching on YouTube. We do try to prioritize answering the YouTube questions live because we have found that they go away after the fact, and I can't answer them after the fact. So that's, just sort of a YouTube glitch. But you can watch us on Periscope. You can be watching us on Twitter. I have a new assistant who's been really fabulous and working on our Instagram, because I don't get Instagram. I don't know if you can explain it to me. Thank you. I don't really get it. Yes, one gray hair at a time, right? But there are lots of different ways to connect with us. I want to remind you, though, that our homepage is autism-live.com. We have been promising you a retool on that, and I hear it's just days away now. So maybe by October 1st, we will actually have a way for you guys to connect with us there on the new page in a way that is super fabulous, awesome. But for now, when you go to autism-live.com, you'll see that it looks like a desktop. There is a computer screen. If you click on the triangle, sometimes on some computers it just starts playing, but if it doesn't, click on the triangle that's on the computer screen. It starts either the live show or the most recently recorded live show. To the side of all that is the live feature. If you put your cursor in the box that says your comment, and all you have to do is type and hit enter. You don't have to tell me how many street lights are in this picture to prove that you're a real person. You don't have to give your phone number, your address, your name, your credit card number, none of that. You just have to hit type and hit enter, and then it shows up here on my screen, and then you can have a conversation with me, but you can also have a conversation with our many doctors. Try to send your question as early as possible, because there is a little bit of a lag, which is why we tend to, in the immediacy of it, give more attention to Facebook and YouTube, because your questions come in late on the live feature, but it's a great way to ask something anonymously. All right. I also want to say, too, just a small programming note, that everybody's back at school now. At least you should be. You should be back at school. And if a placement has not been decided for your child who is supposed to be as of school age and is supposed to be at school, we're going to have Bonnie Yates answer a question about that tomorrow, because that has come up. A family has reached out to us and said, we're like week 3 into school and they still haven't offered us a placement. Honestly, it made the top of my head come off and fly around the room, because I hate when schools do not do the right thing and give a parent the runaround and prevent a young person from getting education. What are we, in the dark ages again? No, excuse me. Yeah, we know we have a right to a free, appropriate public education, right? So if you're having that problem too, make sure you tune in tomorrow, because we're going to be talking with Bonnie Yates about that. We've got a great show for you tomorrow too. So lots going on here. Plus, if you haven't watched we went to the Ed Asner poker tournament, and Samantha did a really lovely edit of some of the people that we had a chance to talk to. The whole footage is there on Facebook, but Samantha did a great shorter version, so you can sort of see highlights of some interviews. It's a bummer because it doesn't have everybody in it, but that's what a highlight reel is. So check that out. And then we have the Denim and Diamonds coming up in just a couple of weeks, which is going to be super exciting. I'm thrilled to be here with you, can you tell? But I don't want you to miss out on Dr. Grandpichet, so we have an oldie but a goodie for you. When this is over, I will be back with Ms. Nancy Allspaw-Jackson for Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. But right now, it's time for Ask Dr. Doreen. I want to, because I love teachers. I'm a former teacher, and we have more and more teachers writing in, which just makes me so happy. Mm-hmm. A teacher says, I have a student who is on a modified school schedule. He comes to school for math and ELA and 2 hours pullout. He is aggressive towards teachers on some days just because. I know that we need to understand what happens before the behavior, and usually it just happens as he wants to hold the teacher's hand. In my room, he can be completing work and fixates on an object, and he knows that if he finishes work, then he can have it. In PE, he just wants to run into children, pull girls' hair, hit teachers, pull their badges. We use social stories, we use if, then. I am not sure what else to do in order to help this student. And I just have to say, I love you so much, because a teacher who is looking at that and not just saying, what's wrong with this child, instead saying, how can I help this student? You are the answer to so many questions and problems.
Honestly.
And I'm so glad that you wrote in and asked this question, because we didn't say before.
Yeah.
I didn't even do the opening for the Ask Dr. Doreen.
That's okay.
But we're welcoming Dr.
Thank you very
Grant
much.
and she is an expert in this field. I believe the preeminent
Thank
expert
you
in
very
this
much.
field. She's going to be answering your question and other people's questions. I do want to put the disclaimer that she's not able to give individual specific advice in this format, right?
We do our best.
But absolutely, and I'm so glad that you're in her capable hands. So, Dr. Grant-Pichet, thank you for being here.
It's a pleasure, Shannon. Let's start all over again.
It's all weird
It's
today.
a pleasure, and yeah, I agree with you that this is an exceptional teacher. That you are an exceptional teacher. Thank you very much for caring so much. And this is what makes all the difference in the lives of our kids, as teachers who are truly just trying to understand, and that is fantastic. So let's just talk about that for a little bit. In ABA, we're not trying to just understand what happens before a behavior. We're also trying to understand what in the past has happened right after the behavior, because that is possibly the reason that some sort of connection has happened. So there's usually a relationship with what happens before, the antecedent, but only because of what happens after, the consequence. The consequence is where it's all at, because if the consequence is in some way rewarding, then the antecedent becomes associated as a signal. So in other words, it's like, let's say every time I do X behavior, I will get a reward. And it's not so much that what just happened before or after, it's the fact that that reward then becomes paired with something right before the behavior. So now, in this case, you're looking at why, you're trying to figure out why this child is aggressive towards teachers. And you've listed a bunch of stuff. I'm glad you did that, because the first thing it points out is that a challenging behavior, like let's say tantruming or hitting or whatever it is, can look the same. It can have the same topography, but it may have multiple different reasons, different functions. It doesn't always have to be the same reason. And in this particular case, you're thinking, okay, it usually happens as he wants to hold the teacher's hand. In my room, he can be completing work and fixates on an object, and he knows that if he finishes work, then he can have it. So in other words, I think what you're trying to say is that he wants the object and has a hard time waiting to get the object before he finishes. That's a very simple process that you can teach him. What is the function? The function is he wants access to a tangible. He wants access to this reinforcer, and he's having a hard time waiting. Okay, so what you do is you actually give him a reinforcer as soon as you hold his hand, and you start to shape the behavior. You start to increase the duration of time gradually. It's as if you have a food item in front of someone and they want to grab it and eat it because they're so hungry, and all you do is you start by saying, wait 1 second, okay, now you can have it. Wait 2 seconds, now you can have it. Wait 5 seconds, now you can have it. And that's all you're doing. You're going to shape that duration of time that he has to wait for the reinforcer. So the first day you'll hold his hand, give him a reinforcer immediately. Second day, hold his hand, wait 5 seconds, count out loud with him so he knows it's coming. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You want to make sure he's successful. So make sure you give him the reinforcer before he tantrums or whatever it is. Make it 10 seconds, make it 30, make it a minute, and so on and so forth. And that way he will gradually learn to wait. Because what happens with our kids, this is a very important thing I find with all our kids, they don't understand the concept of time. This is very true of young children as well, and just typically developing young children. And when you say wait, they don't know what that means. They don't know that means, okay, you're gonna have your reinforcer in 1 minute or 5 or 10 or tomorrow or never. And they also don't understand the difference between tomorrow and 1 minute. So when you say wait, to them it means no. you cannot have your reinforcer. And that's why they lose it, because they don't know it's imminent. They just think, okay, I can't have it, so I might as well throw a tantrum because I really want that reinforcer. I'm not going to get it. So this is really important to always remember, that we need to kind of help our kids with some sort of visual when it requires waiting. Visuals would include a timer. So the child knows that this timer, as it's moving towards, and when there is a time, it will end. Time will come when I get my reward. An egg timer, where they can actually watch the sand. On our phones, there's a lot of different types of timers that show like a bar gradually reducing, and then a buzzer goes off, or a clock, or there's multiple visuals that help the child see that they are getting closer and closer to their reward. That is extremely helpful to kids. And then you just mentioned that in PE, he just wants to run into the children, pull out the girls' hair, hit teachers, pull their badges. To me, it sounds like he's very active, or has a hard time regulating himself in PE. And so I would really suggest that you try to get him. Social stories are not going to work with this. Social stories are a very, very calm type of thing that it requires cognitive activity. To me, it sounds like he has just a lot of hyperactivity going on in PE, and he really needs a one-to-one aid for the PE period, where someone who can help control him and then teach him to self-regulate his behavior. What should happen if he had a one-to-one aid is that the minute he does anything inappropriate, he is actually removed from PE and put into an activity that is not, doesn't allow him to hit people or so on and so forth. And it shouldn't be a fun activity, by the way. It should be work. It should be school activity, so that if he wants to get back into PE, he realizes that I can't hit people, I can't pull their hair, etc. And to begin with, there should be someone there the whole time that's blocking this behavior, so he doesn't even have the opportunity to do that sort of thing. And this is on the assumption that he likes PE. There's also the possibility that he hates PE and that he does these activities in order to be removed. That's why an FBA becomes very important, a functional behavior assessment, because like in that case, I would ask, what happens? What do you normally do when he pulls people's hair and hits the teachers, pulls their badges? What do you guys do with it? Because whatever it is that you're doing is what's maintaining the behavior, and you probably need to be doing the exact opposite of that. And so those are the things that help us understand. If you're more interested in figuring out the functions of behaviors, go on IBT, the Institute for Behavior Training website, and go in the teacher section and go in something that talks about doing a functional behavior assessment, a module on FBA. That's where you really learn about understanding the functions of behavior and how you can identify why a child is doing something. That'll really, really be helpful.
Okay, and I love that you talked about that it could be that he's loving Jim but doesn't know how to be appropriate and regulate himself, but it could be the opposite. As soon as I, saw that there was stuff that was happening in PE, my first question is, especially this time of year, we're used to being in Southern California where outside. It's beautiful and outside, but a lot of times, because I grew up in upstate New York, and a lot of times kids are put into an old gymnasium that's all sound reflective.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Right? And a lot of our kids have
Absolutely.
sensory issues.
Absolutely.
And so he may want out of that room
Totally
because
right.
he can't handle it.
Totally right. Also very possible. Very possible.
But thank you for writing in. And check out Institute for Behavioral Training, and if she wanted to do the CIFA.
Definitely, there is an indirect functional assessment on there, and you can certainly use it for this child or any other child, and that's on skills. Under the BIP builder, I believe. BIP builder on skills, right?
Yes.
It is, yeah. I don't know if you can access it alone still. We used to allow people to just do the BIP builder.
You can purchase just the BIP builder, but if you want to look at the whole thing, you can do the 14-day free trial.
That's right.
So you would go to skillsforautism.com, and in that you could look at the BIP builder. If you decide that all you need is the BIP builder, there's lots of different ways that you can purchase the BIP builder. For schools, they can buy a package package of BIP.
Oh, that's even better.
So, if you had 10 kids that you want, you could buy a package of 10.
That is perfect.
Or, whatever, they can customize it for whatever you need. Tell them Shannon sent you. Ask for the friends and family discount.
That's perfect.
Right? So skillsforautism.com. Okay, should we take a break or do you want to go to the next question?
We can go to the next.
All right. Hello, Dr. Doreen and Mrs. Shannon. This is from India. I have sent questions in the past and your advice has been extremely helpful. Thank you. My question today is, how does one explain about autism to a 9-year-old cousin? Mm-hmm. My daughter is 8 years old with PDD-NOS. Nowadays, he gets very frustrated that he cannot interact and play with her. Also that she repeatedly watches the same videos on YouTube over and over. We have told him she is slow to learn, but he cannot understand that he keeps saying she's so smart. She knows computers, etc. How can she not play with me? And are there any book recommendations that we can suggest?
God, I love this cousin. What a sweetie. Oh my God,
I know.
That's amazing.
I love that he recognizes that
she's so smart.
She is smart because she can do
all these other
certain things. Like we need more people like him in the world.
100%. And what a wonderful kid. I would actually, I don't think it's so much, you don't want to encourage him to give up. Let me put it that way. Yeah. You kind of want to just teach him how to interact with her. I mean, if you have a child who's that motivated to get your child to interact, let's enlist him. Like, let's bring him on board and teach him how to do this. So my recommendation would be, in terms of just explaining autism, I would say very simply, I would explain to him that yes, she is very smart, but she has a hard time understanding social stuff. So it would be things that involve play and so on. And he's 9 years old, so you can definitely get him engaged and involved. And actually, you should probably start having him try to teach her how to play. And so, for instance, I'm trying to think where I can guide you to go so that you can see some of the things he could do. And I think you'll probably find some great ideas again on IBT, Institute for Behavior Training's website, which is ibehavioraltraining.com. And there, if you look under teaching play, I think is where I would look, teaching social behavior, teaching play. It's just short videos and you can look at them and then you can help him understand how to do those things. And then if you go on skills, there's a whole play curriculum. And if for a 9-year-old, you'll be looking at more of the advanced stuff for an 8-year-old. And it'll be cool things, like it'll be things that they're both interested in, perhaps on the computer and so on, but it'll be teaching him how to, let's say, socialize back and forth, have a conversation. That's probably, you might also want to look on skills under the social curriculum, not just the play curriculum, but under the social curriculum, you'll have a lot of things like social communication and social play and social interaction. And these are, when you read them, they'll be too complicated for a 9-year-old to understand, but you'll be able to understand the lesson, and then you'll go back and have a lot of ideas on how to engage him. So I don't think you want to like explain to him that she just can't do it. I think you want to explain to him, like, encourage him and say, I love that you want to try to teach this to her. Like, just explain to him that people are good and bad at different things. Like, you might be good at one thing, but not so good at something else. And she's just not so good at social stuff. And so can you help teach that to her? Because it's really important for her.
Yeah. I didn't invent this. Somebody else said it to me, and I find that I use it with young kids all the time, because this gets to be like the thing when we're out at, like, April is coming and we're going to be at a lot of different events. People come up to the booth and this is what they ask. And somebody had said this to me, so I now use it, that because kids get computers, the difference between a Mac and a PC.
Okay.
So you're a Mac, she's a PC.
Yes.
You both can do the job.
You know,
it's just, but if you input PC information into a Mac, it spits it back out.
Right.
You got to learn the language.
Right.
But it absolutely can do it, because he understands that she's smart and she's capable, but doesn't understand why his input isn't getting there.
It's true.
And then you can teach him which input to, and have him say, and you can teach her your language too, but it's going to take a little bit more time.
Absolutely.
And since she asked about books, I will say that one of the books that I love is Holly Robinson Peete co-wrote a book with her daughter, Elizabeth Rose, and that's called My Brother Charlie, because
That's awesome.
she's a twin and her brother is on the spectrum, and so they wrote a children's book that's all about how they do some things
That's
differently.
amazing.
And so that's the book that I like and
That's
that I
awesome.
recommend, and
Very
you can
nice.
find it on Amazon, and you can find it in most bookstores,
Very nice.
because Holly's pretty well known.
Yes.
But what a great kid, and what
I
a
love
great
that.
mom,
That
and
is terrific. Absolutely.
everybody's spectacular. I want to say we had this comment come in from YouTube that has me really choked up because it means the world to me. Ari has written in and says, I have Asperger's and find this community very understanding and helpful. You're all very wonderful and informative. You have all helped me deal with social problems and school. And I just want to
Honestly,
do the happy
I
dance.
love
Thank you,
that.
Ari. We love you. Thank you so much. All right, we're going to take a short break, and then we're going to come back with more of your questions, so stick with us.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, welcome back. For the month of March, we're going to be making a rain stick. And what's really cool about this project is that the steps are pretty simple, so your kids are going to be able to practice a lot of their fine motor skills when making it. Another bonus is that once the rain stick is completed, you guys can use it for a bunch of different programs under cognition and executive functions. Things that deals with, seeing versus hearing, or using it also for auditory memory. But we'll get to that later. First, we gotta make the rain stick. So the materials you'll be needing are a paper towel roll, tape, paper, aluminum foil, rice, and any kind of materials you want to use to decorate your rain stick with. All right, let's get to it. So the first thing you wanna do is get a piece of tin foil that's about double the length as your paper towel roll. So I got this, and now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna roll it up, like so, and I'm gonna wrap my paper towel roll with it. Okay, and don't worry if it's too messy, okay? This is just to give us a basic shape. Now once I've got this, I'm gonna make it a little bit tighter, and I'm gonna roll it and stick it inside of my paper towel roll. I want to make sure that it goes all the way through the paper towel roll, and what this does, it acts like a buffer so the rice will go down slowly through the tube. And see how that's nice and in there? Okay, now that I have that, I'm going to take a piece of paper and cover one side, and I'm going to take a piece of tape and secure it over the bottom. All right, now that I've got this on, I'm gonna take my rice and pour it in. All right, now that I got the rice in there, I'm gonna seal the other side. Now that this is constructed, don't forget to use your imagination to decorate this any way that you want. And here's my finished rain stick. Don't forget you can decorate yours however you see fit. I decided to use tape and pipe cleaners, but you could always paint it, add sparkles, just whatever you feel like doing. Now that this is done, let's take a listen to it. What does that sound like to you? I think it sounds like rain too. What does rain look like? Ah, that is what rain looks like. You can ask them a whole bunch of different questions using this after it's already been made. Well, until next time, craft on. Bye guys.
Can you see me? Can you see me flying by your side?
Welcome back to Autism Live and to Ask Dr. Doreen. We have Dr. Doreen Grampy-Shea here with us, and she is answering your questions in real time. I want to go to another question that came in to us online. Dear Shannon and Dr. Doreen, just want to thank you both for all the help you've given me in the caring for my 4-year-old boy with severe autism. With all the information, I decided to try the skills program. As I'm not a therapist, I just try to use any of the skills I think he could possibly be able to learn. The program is a great help. In fact, he has helped. He has started to use words.
That's awesome.
Isn't that amazing? Since I started last year, he can now request for food, drinks, and some toys he likes without any prompts. He sometimes asks for potty, but mostly runs to the toilet to let you know. His eye contact has improved greatly, and he is a lot more aware of his environment. The question I would like to ask is, quite often his voice is very hard to hear, and I don't know if I can help with this. Thank you. And this is our Irish mom, one of our Irish moms that writes to us from time to time.
That's amazing. That's so awesome. I'm so happy to hear that the program is helping you, and that's fantastic. Because, you know, if you're just doing this off of skills and your child is responding well to it, and he's only 4 years old, he's pretty high potential. So I really encourage you to keep going because he's already done all these things. Yeah, so also have his hearing checked. I would have his hearing checked, because a lot of times when our volume kids, our kids who have a hard time with volume, there's something, you just want to make sure his hearing is intact. And then also it's possible that he has certain sound sensitivities, so that our kids learn to lower their volume if they themselves find certain sounds to be very harsh. So there is a way to work with it. The way that you explain loudness is that you get the child to do a physical activity, like for instance, jumping on a trampoline, and then that will increase his intake and exertion of air. And as soon as you increase the air, the volume goes up. And so then you reinforce the louder volume, and therefore the child learns that what you're looking for is louder volume. And you pair it with, so what you would do is basically have the child jump on a trampoline a little bit and ask him questions, and then you would reinforce good loud, good loud. And you want to teach him loud and soft, and you want to say, I'm talking soft, as opposed to I'm talking loud. So he starts to understand what loud means. And through the trampoline activity or physical activity, he also learns how to produce loud. And then that way he will start to do that. But I see this with a lot of kids, so I wouldn't worry about it. I think it starts because our kids are sensitive to certain sounds themselves.
Okay, great advice. Moving on, this came into us last week on Women's Day, and they said Happy Women's Day to us. Is it appropriate for a 6-year-old going on 7 to start an ABA program with CARD? My son has been diagnosed with mild autism and has a very high speech delay for his age, very minimal vocabulary. His general public school does not seem to be cutting it with him, only getting 30 to 45-minute sessions with a therapist twice a week, with one being a one-on-one. I asked to bump up the amount of time or sessions per week in our last IEP, but was sadly told by the therapist that her hands are full at the moment with other, more severe children, and she would have to look into her schedule. Okay. Well, everyone take a breath.
We're both going to take a deep breath here.
Yeah.
So it would be very appropriate for you to start a program with us. We would love to have your child. We have children of all different levels at all different ages, and it is terrible that your school is only doing a couple of hours with your child, and it is more terrible that this therapist is just saying, I'm sorry, I'm busy. It isn't the therapist's responsibility, it is the school's responsibility to find you therapists who are available to provide the therapy for your child. And 1 to 2 hours has been shown to not be successful in the long run. Anything below 10 hours is usually not enough. So I would highly recommend that you do 2 things. Well, if you just contact us and we start treating your child, we will probably be using insurance funding, if possible, to get the services that your child needs. If we end up having to use school time, then we will help you also fight for funding in the school district and increase those hours. 1 to 2 hours in the public school is just kind of a joke, to be honest with you, and they should be supporting you much, much more. And yes, it's really important, and this is what happens, unfortunately, when our kids are very high functioning. They do tend to get ignored because people think they only have to deal with the children who are severe. No, the high functioning children are the ones that get more depressed and anxious as they grow up, and then behaviors occur a little bit later. So we have to take care of those children as well.
Yeah. I mean, on the legal side of this, there's so many things that they have said to you are completely illegal. I just want to empower you to know that your child is entitled here in the United States to a free, appropriate public education. And there isn't a dollar limit to that. There isn't a copay to it. Your child is just entitled to it. And if the school can't provide it, they have to pay for someone else to provide it. And they can't say, we can't afford it. And they can't say, well, and believe me, because the state of Texas just got slapped down hard for this. We covered this a couple of weeks ago, that the state of Texas had a quota of how many students got special education. And it was like 8%, which is like 10% less than the average. And the Supreme Court found that they were in violation of human rights and gave them a week to find a plan to correct it. They can't just say, well, we're only going to give it to the most severe kids. The fact of the matter is that if your child has a diagnosis, they have a legal obligation to give them a free, appropriate public education. And one of the things that I always say to people, when you go to IEP meetings, tell them that you're going to tape record, bring the tape recorder, because one of two things will happen. Either they won't say stupid things like this,
right?
And I'm sorry to use that word,
no,
but that's
absolutely
a stupid thing
really
for this person to say.
Absolutely.
And it's illegal. So they either won't say it, or somebody will say something stupid, and then it just streamlines everything. Because as soon as you catch somebody saying something stupid on a tape recorder, suddenly there's funding for all kinds of things. So you have to protect yourself. You have to tell them legally that, when they send you the IEP invitation, tell them I'm bringing a tape recorder, put it in writing so that they can't say that they didn't know.
Yes.
Bring the tape recorder with you, turn it on, and then the other thing that you must do is make sure that you maintain a certain decorum. Especially if the tape recorder is going, you can't yell, but you shouldn't anyway, right? And if you need to take breaks, you say, we need to take a break, right? And you step outside and go into the bathroom and scream into some toilet tissue. I know parents that have had to do that, right? You do whatever you have to do so that you can maintain composure, because there is a record of it. But if you want to know more about the legal side of it, write back to us. We are not having a live show tomorrow, but in 2 weeks we have Bonnie Yates back. And we can fill you with knowledge about the legal side of this, because it's just,
yeah, it's so frustrating that this kind of thing still happens. It's pretty amazing.
It's horrifying. But they don't let them push you around. You can ask for an emergency IEP, and if you want to, bring the tape recorder to this one and say, well, I was told that she's too busy and that she has more severe kids to deal with. And if the tape recorder is worrying while you say that, and somebody who understands realizes that, they will be all over that, right? And correcting that. If they don't understand, then, it's time to go higher and say, you call the superintendent of schools and say, hi, this is what was said, and I have it on a tape recorder. Things will happen. Things will change very quickly. Okay, but email me if you want to know more. s.penrod@autism-live.com. I'm hurrying because I want to try to squeeze in a couple more questions.
Sure.
I need help just getting started to get my adult daughter diagnosed correctly and find her resources to teach her life skills and social skills too. We are in Phoenix, Arizona area and just don't know where to start.
Right, and so we are fortunately in Phoenix. We've had a center there for quite a while. And I would start by reaching out to the Card Center in Phoenix. We work with adults, children, all different ages, and we would be happy to help her figure out her life skills and social skills. We would start by assessing her. We have a really great program now for adolescents and adults, I have to say. And if you're interested in learning about it, go online and look for skills living, and you'll see it. It's pretty cool. It really goes into all sorts of adult skills, and it starts with an assessment, very much like Skills for Children. And basically, you'll answer a lot of questions about her, and then it'll help develop a whole program for her. So, and then of course we also have the individuals there, the therapists and supervisors who can help provide that. And we're very interested in helping people in Phoenix. I'm actually trying to really increase our presence in Arizona right now.
Okay. And Skills Living is fabulous. I've seen it and I just think it's remarkable. I'm going to try to squeeze in these two last questions. Hello, my twin grandchildren are 4 years old and are diagnosed with autism. My daughter is overwhelmed. There is no ABA where she lives in rural Wyoming. They are nonverbal, have poor sleep and eating habits, and are not potty trained. They have speech and OT at their preschool, but it's not enough. What would you suggest we start on first? The special education teacher at the school will help us make a plan to get their home life some structure. There's very little right now. I'm at their house every afternoon to help. They are going to start a PECS program at school. They point, whine, and lead to communicate. Thank you. I just found out about your show and love it. Loving you, right?
Yes,
Sending you,
loving
that's
you back.
air hug. I know you're new, so I want to translate. That's an air hug for grandma because I tell you what, sometimes, it's called circling the wagons, and sometimes a grandma can make all the difference in the world. So I'm so glad she has you.
Absolutely. And I would start with educating myself if I were you. I would start with if you and your daughter and son-in-law and others in the community, let's say other friends or neighbors or whoever you can gather who would perhaps become a support team. Like, this is where I would start, honestly.
Yeah.
I would pick about maybe 5 to 10, the more the better, people who are interested in helping. And I would gather everyone around at night when the twins are asleep, and 1 hour every day, or as much as you guys can handle, maybe more on the weekends, or if someone can watch the twins while everybody's doing this. I would start on the Institute for Behavior Training website. I would go on IBT, and I would one by one go through the modules, and some of them are short, some of them are a little bit longer, but they're all generally very easy to understand. And I would just start learning all about autism and behavior management and teaching. So there's you basically want to first learn kind of what is autism and what are we looking at, and then you want to learn about what is ABA, what's the whole background of ABA, how does ABA work, applied behavior analysis. And then you want to, and that'll just be a couple of hours. And then you want to learn about sort of two things, which is teaching skills and reducing or eliminating challenging behaviors. And they go hand in hand. So for instance, if the child points to something and you don't give it to them, they will probably tantrum. The pointing to something is kind of a communication. By the way, the fact that they're pointing in itself is a really good sign. So please, see how they're whining? They're whining because they can't talk. If they could vocalize, they wouldn't whine. And if they can't vocalize, then somebody can help. So you can teach them everything non-verbally as well. But I think the best thing to do is to start educating you on these things. And if you can get a team of people together, I would make people responsible for different things. For instance, one of you can be very responsible for putting together a schedule of therapists. So what we did with a lot of families before there was funding in most of the U.S. is that they would hire local kids or high school kids or people in the neighborhood or whoever wanted to help, cousins, neighbors, etc. And each person would volunteer to do let's say 2 hours of work a week with the twins, or 4 hours of work a week. And let me tell you, we've done this with kids, and it starts out a little bit rough because the children are not even used to sitting and learning something, much less being compliant and so on. But we start with very basic lessons like come here and sit down. And if you can, and compliance lessons really help the child calm down and realize that they're about to learn. So I would put one person in charge of putting a team together, one person in charge of making sure everyone in your whole group receives this education through IBT, and one person, maybe yourself or your daughter, whoever is able, in charge of becoming familiar with skills. And skills is where you'll get the content. So really what you're doing is you're training yourselves on the technique, and then skills is where you'll understand exactly what each child needs to be taught and in what order. Kind of like, how do I teach compliance? How do I start language? How do I start social activity, and so on and so forth. And I know it sounds really overwhelming. All of that sounds pretty overwhelming. So one of the things that we do here at CARD is we can provide you a supervisor who can A, come and visit, and B, talk to you on the phone and actually observe the twins on video and on VoIP, on FaceTime, for instance, and help you figure out how to do things and what to do. This is all possible, but really without some guidance, it'll be very hard. Like, it's just hard. And they're 4, and time is passing, and it'll become less and less it'll become more and more difficult as they age. So the sooner you get someone involved, the better. And getting a supervisor from us is not that expensive. You don't need someone for lots and lots of hours. I don't know the insurance situation in Wyoming. I'm guessing if we're not there, it's because there is no mandate yet. If there is a mandate, hey, we'll send someone out to you and start providing services to you right away. So we kind of need to figure all that out. I start by maybe getting on our website, getting on the skills website, getting on the Institute for Behavior Training website, and start getting some information. And Shannon, I don't know if you have time to guide them a little bit, but it sounds like they need some help.
You can always write to me. I put that out to everybody. s.penrod@autism-live.com. You can write to me, and I can help to sort of break some of what Dr. Granpeesheh just said down. I just want to say, when, I'm sure that it feels so overwhelming, but I want you to know that other people have done it. And also, I think what a lot of people, they start to shut down, because as soon as you say hire people go,
oh yeah, I can't do it.
There's no money, I can't afford it. And I just want to say, I love, since we talked about Holly Robinson Peete already this hour, she did a blog years ago about the 8 things that everybody needs to understand about autism, and number 1 is that nobody can afford it. No one can afford it. Like, maybe Oprah is the only person who can afford it. Honestly. So, that aside, I want to let you know that there are a lot of people who have found a way to make it work. There's a lovely family that was in a very rural community, and they had one little girl. You've got twins. I know that's more, but Skills had just come out. They got their church involved and made it all happen, and nobody got paid anything. It was all volunteers. We've seen people go to their local Kiwanis club, the Knights of Columbus. We've seen sororities adopt a child and donate their time and have the sorority sisters. There are ways. So, and you might find a different way that will inspire all of us, but just know that people have done it. It is possible. And I'm certainly happy to be a touch point to help guide you along the way, because I feel for your daughter, and I feel for these little girls, and I feel for you, and they deserve to have functional communication and be able to communicate, and we know that that can happen.
Yes.
Like, that can happen. It just means you got to have enough people working on enough things and knowing what they're doing.
Absolutely.
And that, if those 2 little girls had functional communication, and that might be PECS, that might be an iconic communication system, and it might transition to speech at some point. if they had that, your daughter's life would instantly be so much better. And if there was a regimen going on and she had help and support and could rest, boy, who knows what could happen.
Absolutely.
And
I mean,
so,
and it's one of those situations. I feel so terrible right now for you because everyone is overwhelmed, but as soon as you get it under control, life changes completely.
it will be like night and day.
Yeah.
And so I just want to say you're not alone. Right. And, you know, we're here talking to you about this, and I'm happy to talk to you more. We can even talk on the phone. And congratulations that you're doing this, and that it is infinitely doable. It really is. Okay, we've got an email. If a child goes to school which does not provide any therapies, the 40 hours ABA is necessary beside the school hours.
No, so essentially when we say 40 hours, you can't really be in school and do 40 hours. It just ends up being too many hours. That's 70 hours a week, so that's crazy. So, but realistically, depending on the child, if the child is younger, I usually pull the child out of school and do all ABA. If the child is older and has to be in school, then I try to work with the school to do some ABA in the school as well as at home and after school at the centers. So basically, it's not just 40 hours, it's like all waking hours. So as much time as the child is not occupied with something meaningful, they should be doing ABA.
Okay, and last question, because it's 11 o'clock straight up. Somebody wants to know about the BCAT. Can they do it in the United Arab Emirates? They can, can't
Yes,
they?
you can do it online.
Absolutely.
It's all online. Just contact the BICC, Behavior Intervention Certification Council. They have their own website, and it has all the information about the BCAT on there.
Okay, but you can do the BCAT through IBT.
Yes, you can take the coursework for the preparation through IBT, Institute for Behavior Training, and then you take the exam, which is administered through the Behavior Intervention Certification Council. And you can do all of that online, and yeah, you can do it anywhere.
There you go. Thank you so much for
It's
being
a pleasure.
with us.
Thank you very
It's always
much.
a pleasure.
Riley has high-functioning autism, and I'd say I noticed somewhere between 9 months and a year. Looking back now, I can tell you everything. I mean, there was no pointing, there was no shared experiences, speech was not coming, the interactive play was not coming, those things weren't happening. You know, you go to the pediatrician, they tell you, well, sometimes boys are slow or things might take a while to come along, but it still wasn't happening. And right when he hit the 2-year-old room in preschool is when the wheels fell off the wagon. That's when we got some intervention. That's when we figured out, you know, how are we going to address this problem. The first thing I did was I got a mentor, because there's no book on what to do with your autistic child. I mean, there's many books, but each path is individual. So I got a mentor, a really nice woman named Marlene. She has a daughter with Asperger's, and she told me, go to a psychiatrist so you can have your child fully diagnosed and a rock-solid diagnosis that can't really be attacked. Call CARD and do whatever they tell you to do. That was probably the thing she talked about the most. Get in touch with CARD. She actually put me in touch with Evelyn from CARD, and calling CARD was like amazing, because I really felt like things were finally going to be okay. We were going to get the help we needed.
We tried a number of different things before we could get into CARD, and you could really see the difference in the data keeping, really addressing what his issues were, whereas the other places we had been, it seemed pointless to me.
We've talked about this, and I feel like we met a lot of really nice, well-intentioned people.
Right.
And then when we got to CARD, we met a lot of really nice people who could help us because they had the experience. It was ABA, which I think is the only way to go with your child if you're trying to overcome autism. And if you go to CARD, the people are so qualified, and there's so much of a database on how to approach this. It's just like they come right in, and we started off with, let's have Riley sit down for 2 seconds, because he couldn't even get that. And we worked on baby steps until now he's in first grade and he's working at grade level. So it just starts with baby steps and it keeps working on because they have a way to approach every single problem, every single tantrum, every single thing you're going to come up with. They have a way to approach it and help you get through it.
Yeah, I'm always amazed, like at our clinic, we'll be having a specific problem and how good they are, all of them, the therapists and your team leader, at coming up with a solution, something to try, and it almost always works. Whatever the particular behavior you're trying to deal with, they're really good at them. They know the answers.
He likes a lot of stuff, I think, regular 7-year-olds like. He likes to swim.
He loves to swim.
He's a fish. Likes to ride a scooter, loves Toy Story, loves playing on the iPad.
Loves
Loves
Justin Bieber.
Thought you all be mine.
Good job, buddy.
High five.
High five.
High five.
Yeah.
CARD's been good about encouraging us to do things that maybe wouldn't occur to us, like him learning to ride a bike was really them saying, hey, it's time, let's do this, and helping us do that. And so he can ride a bike. He's still working on the brakes a little bit, but you know, he can pedal a bike. We can go to Balboa Park and he'll ride happy as a clam along the bike path.
If you think something's wrong, it's not about you. Don't bury your head in the sand. Go get help, because the help is out there to make your life and your child's life just so much better. And if you're lucky enough to get in with CARD, I can't even tell you what a difference it's made in our lives. From 4 years ago, just the quality of life we have, the quality of life Riley has, the progress he's made from being a child who wanted to stay in his room and play Toy Story and line up his Toy Story dolls all day, to a first grader who's working at grade level. It couldn't have happened without CARD intervention, without ABA, and without all the wonderful people we met there.
Ackerman. Welcome back to Talk of Facts. We hear questions all the time, and we want to give you the answers that help make your journey in autism easier and more navigatable. Less than a year ago, we interviewed the top 100 doctors in the United States working with children on the spectrum, and we asked them a question in the cloak of secrecy. What are the top 3 mistakes parents living with autism do? Number 1, and the one that makes me laugh the most, is when they use their physician as a marriage and family therapist. 1, the doctors told me it made them uncomfortable, and 2, they were highly unqualified to provide that type of advice. So the night before your physician appointment with your MAPS doctor, get together with your spouse, significant other, and write out the list of the targets and the agenda that you want to cover at the physician's appointment. Get in sync. Then you'll be definitely spending less time and not making that doctor so uncomfortable. Second thing that was the most common mistakes parents living with autism make is they want to go too fast. And really, you want to pace yourself in the autism journey. We all know that we want to get our kid to be the best they can be and hopefully recover from autism. And what a lot of the doctors have told me is that you want to really pace yourself. 1, to let the labs be your guide, and 2, work with your physician on the prioritization and the delivery of the different medical interventions. The third most common mistake they felt families made was giving up too soon. And what you need to know is they're invested, they're looking at wanting to get the best from your child. But I tell you that when I got that and consolidated the 100 interviews with these physicians, most of the doctors who brought that up had tears in their eyes. They want you to know that they're in the fight with you, and they want you to know that hope is really real. It may take hard work and it may take time, but to not give up and to stay in the game. So let TACA help you. We'll have some more TACA facts for you in the future, real questions and real answers for the autism journey.
month of September, I figured I'd show you guys how to make a task completion chart to help your kids get through the hardest parts of the day. Parents have been writing into our host, Shannon Penrod, the hardest parts of the day are waking up in the morning, after school, and getting ready for bed. Please keep in mind you can always modify the task completion chart to focus on the skills that your family needs most. The template we'll be using today to make the task completion chart you can find at facebook.com/autism-live. All right, let's get to it. The materials you'll be needing are the template, cardstock, scissors, hole puncher, glue, pipe cleaner, Velcro, and photos or images. We find it more reinforcing for kids if you use images of themselves doing the task that you're trying to get them to complete. So what I have here to start off are photos of myself doing all the tasks that we're going to add to our task completion chart today. The first step you're going to be doing is printing the template from facebook.com/autism-live. I have it here, and the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to trim at the top. We don't need that, that's just totally excess. Now that I trim my 3 templates, I'm going to label each one with a different part of the day that we're focusing on, such as waking up, after school, and getting ready for bed. Now that I've finished labeling the templates with the appropriate time of the day, I'm going to attach the photos that go with it. For bedtime, the tasks I chose were getting ready for school, putting away toys, putting on pajamas, and brushing teeth. Now repeat this for all the rest of the day. Now that I've added the photos to the template, I am taking this along with my heavy cardstock to hold all my tokens. I'm going to line them up and make 3 hole punches. I'm going to take this pipe cleaner and attach the pages together with it. We're almost done putting this together. Next, I'm going to take my Velcro. I'm going to put them underneath each picture. And then I'm going to add 4 on the very edge too. Now that I've attached the rough side of the Velcro to the template, now I'm going to take the softer side and add these to the tokens. You can use whatever you want for the tokens, whatever your child finds reinforcing. They could be stickers, images, spacemen, Pokemon, whatever they like. Before you use your task completion chart, it's really important that you do a preference assessment to see what your child finds reinforcing that day. Once you have that established, then you can tell them the rule for how this task completion chart works. So every time they get one of their tasks completed, they add a token to it. And the way the task completion chart functions is like a token economy. So after they put a token under each one of these tasks, they can trade it in for their reinforcer for the day. Now that you've made your task completion chart, hopefully your child will be able to use it on a daily basis and help them through those difficult times of the day. Well, until next time, craft on. Bye, guys.
Can you see me flying by your side?
Good morning and welcome to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. I'm Nancy Alsbaugh-Jackson.
And I'm Shannon Penrod.
Good morning.
Good morning. It's good to see you.
Good to see you.
I know you're getting really excited because it's almost Denim and Diamonds.
Oh yes,
time.
Denim, Diamonds and Stars now we call it. I think.
Denim and Diamonds and Stars.
Yes. So yeah, that's coming up on October 7th. So
Very
lots of
cool.
preparation
We're
on
going to be
that.
talking about that a lot.
Right.
But we got a big hour here for our viewers.
We
I
have
said 2
several
doctors.
guests. 2 doctors.
Which is pretty fabulous. We mentioned at the top of the show that Dr. Blair Braden is going to talk with us about aging and the autism brain and aging, which
Right.
I'm excited to hear about. And then we have Dr. Christine Cohen is going to be with us to talk about her program and her book, Stand By Me, Empowering Bystanders to End Bullying in Schools. I'm very excited about this and having her here in the studio with us because you know, we've both been through it in terms of either our kids going through something that was inappropriate at school that we were calling bullying, or viewers writing into us saying, what do we do? And I always feel like there's so many things in the pot that fix that. Some of it is that we have to, give skills to our kids, but the other part is if the people who are standing around don't do something and don't know what to do.
And this is really the only program I know that provides, guidelines on how
Very specific.
students can be a part of anti-bullying.
Well, and even, on the other side of it now, there are times when we've talked to Jem about what do you do and what don't you do. And as a parent, I don't want him to get injured, right? Nobody wants to say to their kid, get in there and fight for the bullies, because we've seen that bad things have happened with that. But this book gives very clear guidelines that does not get the bystander injured, but takes the gas out of the bully. So love the fact that she's here.
Yeah.
And first up, though, we have some news. Shall we
Yes, we
dive
do.
into the news?
There's another experimental drug for autism, and a larger trial of it is planned for 2019. The drug is called Suramin. And it's used for, it's a century-old medicine for sleeping sickness.
Yeah, we've actually talked about this before, but this is a big expanded trial that's happening in 2019. They're very specifically looking for people to be a part of the trial. They're going to be looking at how they've seen in their previous trials that taking this helps with social interaction, that it's easier for them to socially interact. They saw that some of the boys in the previous study spoke for the first time.
Right.
It's pretty exciting.
And some skills improve, such as tying shoelaces and learning new reading words.
Don't we love that?
Right.
So they are looking for boys that are on the autism spectrum. Of course, I don't have
Ages
this
5
one.
to 15.
5 to 15.
And it's UC, University of California at San Diego. It's Dr. Robert Navio. Navio, I think is the way you pronounce his name. And they said, treated boys began achieving new milestones, such as actively engaging in new language, social games like tag, trying new foods, and taking on new interest in music, dance, sports, and science.
Okay, so, and I found a different place here where it says they need to qualify, children must now be between the ages of 3 and 10 for the new study, born in California of a normal term pregnancy and not readmitted to the hospital in the first months after birth. In addition, the children must either have been diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder, or they will take typically developing children that are not taking prescription medications, because they will be their control group, I would assume. You can enroll, and the screening can be done online, and there's no need for a personal visit. So if that's something that you want to be a part of, you can find more information about it by going to the Navio Lab, NAVIAUX lab at ucsd.edu. So, I'm sorry, I got verklempt.
Oh, that's okay.
Drowning. But anyway, so check that out if you want to be a part of that study, and that's happening in 2019. Should be really interesting. We've seen a lot of drugs in the last few years that had previous studies that are getting into those clinical trials where they might actually, be at the point where soon our kids can actually try them on the open market,
Right,
which would be a fascinating
exciting.
thing. Okay. Next story, I thought this was a very interesting story, that there is a young man who's on the autism spectrum that had a lot of problems. You know how we always say that when kids find their thing, it's interesting, because then the world looks at them in a different way, and they look at the world in a different way. So this young boy, Alfie Aldrich, had some behavior that was making it very difficult for him in school. He was labeled as somebody who had anger and aggression, and now he's discovered a love for modeling.
Yes, he's going to be modeling for H&M, River Island, and Land Rover.
And he's so excited about it, and his dad is supporting him in this, and he is thrilled about it and just loves to be in front of the camera.
Right, so he's found his niche.
Which, and so as a result of that, the world is looking at him in a different way. I always love what Elaine Hall says about, we have to stop looking at people in these very defined boxes. And she says of her son, because somebody asked her once in front of me, well, so is your son high functioning, or, which, you know, we all need to get away from those terms. And her response was just so brilliant. And she said, I don't subscribe to high functioning and low functioning. And she's like, I don't even know what that means, because it's all contextual. If, you know, if you're in a classroom and you're doing trigonometry, then no, my son's not going to perform particularly well. But if you're on the side of the mountain and trying to figure out what to pack to be able to make it to the top of the mountain, my son will be the most proficient person on the side of that mountain.
Right.
She's like, so, you know, it's and I go, oh, that makes great sense, doesn't it?
Yes.
So anyway, love it when people find their niche.
Yes.
Okay, and then very interesting story coming out of Australia. There's an election that's happening there in Victoria, and it's heated up a little bit around the topic of autism. And one of the candidates, Matthew Guy, is promising a quote unquote revolution for autism support services. One of the things that he's saying, if his party is elected into power, which is I guess the coalition, if they win the November election, that they will give a package of $50 million to autism support services that will include a 24-hour autism helpline and $4 million increase of early diagnosis services. And you know, that all sounds very interesting to me. And I'd shared with you that recently in doing talks, the many talks that I do, one of the things that I try to explain to people is how difficult it is for a parent in the early days.
Yeah, because you don't know where to turn to.
And, you know, so you sometimes you'll see on the news and they'll say early warning signs of autism, but you know, when you finally get to the point, I know for me it was this way, where I was like, okay, I think something's going on, and a friend said, I think something's going on. So I went, okay, it's time to call somebody.
Right. Yeah, who do you call?
Yeah, and I say to everybody, where are the billboards?
Right.
Why aren't there billboards on every major highway?
And then what billboard would it have? What number would it
and
have
what
to
phone
call?
number would it have to call? And how can we be in the United States and that is not a thing? Why is our government?
Usually it's the pediatrician that would do a referral to an assessment center.
But yes, that's in the perfect world, that's how it would be. How many people do you know that that's what happened?
And it happened to me far too late.
Well, okay. Way too late outside of when you would have liked to have gotten services.
Right.
You know, we had to, the pediatrician that we had at the time totally missed it. I made an appointment with a developmental pediatrician on my own, and it took me 3 days to find out that's who I needed to call and get an appointment with, was a developmental, 3 days. I'm, you know, somebody who can research very quickly and not afraid to call people. And I always think, what's it like for a parent that English isn't their first language? Anyway, I love the idea of this 24-hour hotline that is sponsored by their government. I think that that's a particularly interesting thing.
And that a lot of the $50 million would go towards assessment of children going into secondary school.
Yes, and then there's a $500,000 fund that will provide resources and grants for local community support groups. I just, you know, I find that very interesting, and I think it's neat that this party has said this is a part of our platform, and defined it so well, and that news picked it up. News all the way, so that when I was searching news this week, it came up in my feed, and I was like, that's pretty cool.
We can only hope for something like that to happen here.
Yes, there's an election coming up, and I hope that our politicians are listening.
Yes.
And paying attention. Okay, so we've got these two great guests.
Right. First, I think we're going to hear about autism and aging.
Yes,
and
the brain.
The brain.
And how the brain ages.
Right.
Yes, I'm excited to hear this.
So Dr. Blair Braden
will be with us in just a few minutes. And then don't forget that later on, Dr. Christine Cohen is going to be with us with her book, Stand By Me. So stick with us.
My name is Nancy Allspaw Jackson. I'm the Executive Director of Act Today, and I'm here to support this amazing cause for military families with children with autism. Most military families move on average every 2 years. Oftentimes they have a parent who's deployed. With 1 in 68 military children being diagnosed with autism, it's just more critical than ever that we give them the support they need for care and services. This is the 8th year of our run. It's always a great event. for the San Diego community, the fitness community, and the military community to come out and support military children with autism.
So nice to see so many people out here this morning, not only providing their support morally and emotionally for these families, but financially. And so they're raising a lot of money, tens of thousands of dollars. It all goes to treatment and some of the things that these families may not otherwise be able to afford. And so we're just proud to be a part of it.
There's a children's race as well, and it's all kinds of fun too that's mixed up in it all.
This is our 8th year being the title sponsor of the One Hope Act Today Family 5K, 10K Family Festival. And we believe doing good is doing good business. The main thing that we're out here today is because of our Cabernet supports Act Today. And with our Cabernet, we donate back towards Act Today, and we've donated over 2,000 hours of ABA therapy.
Gunny Gitmo came all the way out here from Palm Springs to support this because we do have a son that has autism, and so we come out here to do the support for it all the time. We do a lot of fundraisers out in Palm Springs also.
We had a huge Stroller Warriors group out here. I run with Stroller Warriors Miramar. We had a bunch of ladies run their first ever 10K today. It was amazing. And I have a personal connection to autism. My son Ethan has autism.
I'm in the Navy, and I ran the inaugural Act Today 5K back in 2011, I think it was. And so every time I come back to San Diego, I try and make it around this time so I can come run this race.
I'm a 14-year military spouse who has been through 4 deployments with my husband. He's running today right now, so I'm just very happy to be here. Anytime an organization is out here helping military families, I'm always here to support because they're here to help families like me.
A lot of adults don't really believe kids. They'll think, kids are kids, what are they talking about? But when a child stands up for what they believe in, it's so strong and powerful. I first got involved with autism advocacy 4 years ago when my friend was diagnosed. When I found out about my friend's diagnosis, I didn't really understand what it meant. But it didn't matter to me or change our friendship. I didn't look at her any differently. We still had so much fun together. Now I know that she experiences life a little differently than me, and that's okay. Knowing what she goes through has helped me to understand and be more caring towards other people in similar situations. I got involved with ACT Today because I wanted to do whatever I could to help. They provide options like behavioral therapy, medical care, social skills programs, assistance to military families, and much more. Being there for my friend was my #1 priority. I've been volunteering and spreading the word about the cause via my social media platform because raising awareness is a crucial first step. There needs to be more kids and teens involved to make sure that our voices are heard just as loudly as the adults. You may be small like me, but your acts of kindness are not.
And we are back, and now joining us is Dr. Blair Braden, who is an assistant professor of the Barrett Honors Faculty at the Department of Speech and Hearing Science at Arizona State University. Thanks for joining us, Dr. Braden.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Yes. And you are doing a study. You're leading a study, a 4-year study on aging and autism in adults. Is that correct?
That's correct. So we've been doing this work for a few years already, and we recently got funding from the National Institutes of Health to continue for 4 more years, at least. But I hope to follow these adults for a very, very long time.
Very little is known about how aging will affect adults with ASD. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so Leo Kanner gave, the kind of first diagnosis of autism in the 30s. And that's really not that long ago in the grand scheme of things in understanding health conditions. And it didn't even make it to the DSM until 1980. So we just don't have a good picture of what autism looks like in older adults and how aging may affect them differently. There's so many people out there who are probably on the spectrum but just haven't been identified.
Fascinating. This whole thing is fascinating to me. And in your studies, you have identified that men in general, middle-aged men, that their brains and the way they use their brain is a little bit different. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, so it's middle-aged men with autism compared to middle-aged neurotypical men. So one of the things that we really are concerned about is executive functioning. So we know that executive functioning can oftentimes be a difficulty for people on the spectrum, and we also know that executive functioning gets harder for everybody as we age. So we're worried that people on the spectrum may really see those difficulties to a greater magnitude. And that's what we found in our study when we looked at middle-aged men with autism compared to matched neurotypical men, so men with the same IQ, the same level of education, that our middle-aged men with autism struggled on executive functioning. And then when we looked at the brain, we saw a brain network that they weren't using when they were doing executive functioning. So we think that might be the root of the problem.
And do we have any idea why that exists?
Well, we also saw some structural differences in the brain, so some brain regions that were a little bit smaller and not as well connected to the rest of the brain. So we think it could be a brain communication breakdown, or that it's not happening as efficiently.
Okay.
And do you hope that by figuring this out that we can, what's the hope? This information is very exciting, but are you thinking there'll be something behaviorally that'll be a workaround, or what are you hoping will come of this?
Yeah, that's exactly it. So what we've done is we've identified some of the weaknesses, and now we are tailoring behavioral interventions to try to address that. And you nailed it about alternative strategies. What are some compensations we can do to help executive functioning? So for example, we see that long-term memory, it functions pretty well in our middle-aged adults with autism, very similarly to their neurotypical counterparts. So we're going to try to train up some habit strategies that can compensate for difficulties in flexibility and planning and those executive functions that are harder.
I just can't imagine. We get to meet a fair amount of individuals who are on the autism spectrum, but in terms of looking for middle-aged and older people on the spectrum, how tough has it been for you to be able to find these subjects?
It's been very tough. So we have a little over 30 in our study right now, and I've been out in the community trying to find these individuals for close to 4 years now. And we partner with the Southwest Autism Research and Resource Center here in Phoenix, which is an amazing community center. So we've been able to find a lot of people through them, but a lot of people, as I've found, by just going to support groups and other community events. And now our new venture is to try to recruit middle-aged women with autism. And that, as you can imagine, is also very difficult because of the big sex difference in not as many women receive a diagnosis.
Absolutely.
And many of the participants in your study are being diagnosed for the first time?
Mm-hmm, it's true.
Okay.
And so when you say middle-aged, though, what years does that mean to you? What are you looking for?
Yeah, that's a great question. We adjust the middle age window a bit when we're talking about adults on the spectrum because so little is known. So in neurotypical aging, we usually don't think of middle age until 50 or so. But for us, there was really this gap in what happens to anybody over the age of 40. So we start our middle age recruitment at 40 years of age, and then we accept people as old as we can find them. So we have a few in their 70s.
This is very exciting to me because I just turned 56 and I thought that made me senior citizen. But apparently I'm middle-aged.
Yeah, you're middle-aged.
I'm still cooking with gas. This is very exciting to me. Okay.
Also, something that struck you is the high rates of depression and anxiety. Can you talk about that?
Yes, so that was something we weren't looking for, we weren't expecting, but we collected data on because how people are feeling with mood and anxiety can affect how they perform on cognitive tasks. And what we found was that people endorsed really high rates of depression and anxiety. So that's the thing we moved on first. We just this summer finished a behavioral intervention to try to reduce stress and depression and anxiety in our adults with autism. And those results are hot off the press, and we found a really strong reduction in depression symptoms. So that's very exciting for us.
Amazing. So now, if people want more information and or they know somebody that would be ideal for this study, or they themselves are ideal for this study, where do we need to send them so that you can put them into your group?
Absolutely. So I shared my website with your producers yesterday. Yep, there it is. That would be fantastic if anyone themselves wants to volunteer for our study or knows someone who may be a good candidate. There's a place to go on there to click a button about participating.
Okay.
You can also see our publications.
For those of you that are listening to the podcast on iTunes, it's asu.edu/Braden, BRADEN, ABA Lab, LAB as in boy. Really amazing. When people are a part of your study, what kinds of things can they expect to have to do? Is it mostly surveys, or are there MRIs?
Yeah, that's a great question. So we do it all. We try to make it, pack in as much information as we can get without taking too much time from the person. But we get questionnaires, we do cognitive assessments, so pen and paper kind of tests and some kind of building tests. And then we do an MRI, so about an hour in the scanner, which sounds like a lot, but a lot of our scans are functional MRI. So you're actually looking at a computer screen, doing different thinking tasks and giving your answers on buttons. So it's kind of interactive and sort of video game-like. So people generally really enjoy participating in the study. We can give them direct feedback about their brain, that everything looks normal, which is mostly the case, but it's kind of nice to have that confirmation. And then we can also give them feedback about how they're doing cognitively, what areas they may be struggling more or less with. And then they are compensated $100 for their time, because it takes about 4 or 5 hours out of people's time. So we're really flexible too. We will do evenings and weekends, anything we can do to get these individuals.
Okay, but if somebody doesn't live in the Phoenix area but is willing to travel, what would they have to come once or twice, do you think?
So our participants come every 2 years. So as long as they would be willing to come every 2 years, we'd happily take out-of-state participants.
All right.
And what are you hoping is the ultimate outcome of the study, and how it can be practically applied?
What we hope is to pretty definitively describe what things are going to get easier for adults on the spectrum as they get older, and what things are going to get more challenging, and then to be able to develop meaningful interventions for those challenges. And we do the brain imaging for a couple of reasons. One, because there are advances in neuromodulation where we may actually be able to target brain circuits that aren't performing the way we would like, and that could improve people's independence. And then also it may be a way for us to see if our behavioral interventions are helping by an objective measure. If people start using the brain circuits they weren't using before, that's pretty powerful evidence that our interventions are working.
Right.
And lastly, we think it's really important for clinicians more broadly to understand what autism looks like in older adults. We really worry that gerontologists who are very unfamiliar with the condition may actually misdiagnose some older adults as possibly having a dementia that they don't have.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay. There's a lot there. This is very exciting, and I hope that you'll come back and join us as you get results and things and have stuff to report on.
Yes, I would love to.
Okay, fabulous.
Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Exciting.
Yeah, I can imagine that there's a dearth of information when it comes to older people on the spectrum. I mean, when we think about how it's just been in the last 10 years that this, awareness has come about.
Yeah, it's a very interesting thing. But in my head, as she was talking, I was going through, okay, who do I know that's over the age of 40 that is on the spectrum? I actually came up with a huge list of people. So I'm going to send an email out and try to connect them, because what a wonderful thing. And great for them to find out where they are and to get all of that. But how great for all of our kids coming up. It had never occurred to me that once we help Jem with his executive function skills, that they would get worse later on.
Right.
And that we need, as parents, to plan for that and to be on top of that.
Right.
That had not occurred to me before. Duh. Anyway,
Okay.
we're going to take a break, and then Dr. Christine Cohen is going to be joining us, talking about her
Her
program
anti-bullying
and book,
program. Yeah,
Stand By Me. So stick with us.
Hello, fellow activists. In our last segment, we talked about step number 2, educate yourself. Step number 3 is get support. Now, any journey can feel overwhelming if you feel like you're walking it alone. Well, you're far from alone, because with 1 in 50 kids diagnosed with autism today, there are a lot of us out there. Of course, there's always the issue of financial support. Now, there's a handful of organizations out there that offer financial support to families in need. ACT Today, or Autism Care and Treatment Today, is one of them. Visit our website at www.act-today.org to find out more about our grant process. I want to talk about a different kind of support today, emotional support. Now, you can get that from other travelers on this path. Some of the best advice I've ever received is from the moms of other kids with autism who went to school with Wyatt or were involved with programs with him. Then there are the pioneers. These are the families that have gone through this years ago, and there was very little information out there. All of these people seem to have the desire to pay it forward. Now, one of them, Lisa Ackerman, who is one of my mentors, started an organization called TACA, Talk About Curing Autism. She actually took the concept of mentors and support groups and made it available to everybody. You can go to their website, talkaboutcuringautism.org, to find out more. During the first and most difficult year after Wyatt's diagnosis, I wrote an email to close family and friends, letting them know what was going on and the challenges our family was facing, and why we dropped out of sight. I was amazed at the outpouring of love and affection and all the help I received from that email. First, you have to be vulnerable. You can't be afraid to ask. Try this out. Could you cook me a meal? Are you going to the market? Can you pick me up a few things? Could your kids play with my kid and make them feel included? Or can you come over and clean my house? Well, maybe not that last one, except with your best friend. And maybe the best support of all is having someone that listens, and that doesn't cost a dime. So until next time, surround yourself with the loving kindness of others and keep the faith.
Talk to us a little bit about what your degree is in.
City planning or urban planning.
I got it from Cal State Northridge with a degree in cinema and television arts with an emphasis in screenwriting.
And what are you interested in, Eli?
A video game internship.
Computer programming.
I'm hoping to combine entertainment or travel, my two passions.
Ooh. What kind of jobs have you worked?
Bakery inventory.
Okay, inventory.
Want to talk about your volunteer job?
I was going to help the soldiers.
You volunteered to help the soldiers?
Yes.
I interned in the national parks in the Santa Monica Mountains, which is very urban area. So I worked with the problems of how it's impacting the surrounding community, like the flow of traffic and the flow of people and what they could do to plan in the parking.
I've been to China. I've been all around Europe. I've been to Thailand, Japan, Australia.
You can create an app? That's impressive. Really cool thing. Can you teach other people how to make an app? If you have a choice between working or not working,
Working.
You like working.
Yes.
Why? What do you like about working?
It is fun.
I would work.
Yeah? You would choose work? Why?
Cause I have get one that get paid and enjoy it, and want to make sure I have enough money so I can save it.
Why do you need to have a full-time job? I mean, it's kind of like a duh thing, right?
No, obviously, so I
Yeah.
can support myself
Right.
and hopefully a family down the line, but at least at first, myself.
I'm very dependable and always reliable and get to my job on time.
What excites you about working a job or being an intern?
Learning new skills.
Yeah. What has it meant to you having this job and having the stability of a job that you've had for multiple years?
It's meant the world because I'm able to do everything, but almost everything I wanted to do because of that job.
What is autism? What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
What is autism?
I've been asking myself that for a very, very long time.
Let me think about that one.
Trying to just
Jeez. Let me think. Oh man, that's a big one. Yes.
Autism.
Autism is a neurological disorder that affects many of our kids in different ways.
It's a learning disability that affects the cognitive functions of the brain.
A lot of people have the misconception that it's a disability, and it's really not.
I look at it as like a special gift.
When one person thinks differently from another.
It's an opportunity for everyone to learn to understand someone that's a little different than them. Autism is the ability to educate.
They're given so much talent in different areas.
To me, autism means a chance to be with and be around people you really care about. Autism is beautiful.
It's a way of seeing the world differently.
It's always unique, totally intelligent, and sometimes mysterious.
Happiness that comes out of my son's hard work.
It's a movement.
Unpredictable.
That's right.
Awesome. Love.
The field I want to work in.
Laughter, fun, joy. Autism is beautiful to me.
I want you to remember these three words. There is hope.
And we are back, and as promised, we're here with Dr. Christine Cohen. Dr. Cohen is a licensed psychologist and specialist in school psychology. You provide contracted psychological services for public school districts through your company, the East Texas Educational Contracting. You have quite a background as a graduate of clinical psychology at the University of Texas, Southwestern Medical Center's graduate program of biomedical sciences, and you were an autism coordinator for 18 years. And now you've developed this groundbreaking program, Stand By Me. Tell us, in essence, what Stand By Me is about.
Well, it's a simple, effective, and easy-to-use anti-bullying program that teaches kids what to do when they see bullying happen.
Okay.
And basically, there are two very straightforward strategies that we teach kids. Number one is to step forward, and number two is to stand back. And that also is very simple. So if you can imagine a bullying incident where you have a bully berating a victim, you have a few kids watching, those kids are really uncomfortable. They don't like bullying, they're disturbed by it, but they really don't know what to do, and they're scared. You know, they're scared of being targeted, they're scared of being seen as tattlers, they're scared of getting in trouble. And so we teach them what to do. So stepping forward means that you go forward, you introduce yourself to the victim, and you remove the victim from that interaction. You don't confront the bully, you ignore the bully. The bully is not important for us in this program. All of our support goes to the victim. So what you find, I mean, behaviorally, if you remove that victim, the audience is going to go away. There's nothing to see, okay? And the bully is not reinforced for that behavior because they're not getting the attention. So we teach them to step forward. That's the basic interaction. If they're in a hallway, you know, they walk with them to the next class. If they're in the cafeteria, they invite them to join them at the table. If they're outside, they walk toward the nearest adult. The standing back happens when there's physical aggression because we're big on safety. We don't want kids to do anything they're uncomfortable doing. So if there's physical aggression, we teach them to stand back and alert an adult. And so then what we do is we have the kids take data on what they're doing. And that's one of the things that makes this program really unique. Most programs just give you anecdotal data. And Stand By Me gets 5th through 8th graders to take data. And it really is very simple, but what they do is that they keep track of what kind of intervention they made, whether they stepped forward or stood back, and what the location was. And those interventions are tallied over time. They're given to administrators, and then administrators can use that information to actually make decisions about staffing patterns within the building. So one of the things we found is that you take all those all the onlookers, which are a major resource. You know, they far outnumber any of the kids that are engaging in bullying or being victimized. But you activate those bystanders, and they want to help. So they will actively engage. And in the 4 years of the pilot program we have, our student members logged over 4,000 interventions.
Wow.
And to me, that's so impressive.
Yes.
And that's all the kids. That's not me. That's the kids.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure that the school doesn't think of that as being impressive because that means there were 4,000 incidences in which something was happening. But the truth is, it's there. And whether we want to know that it's happening or not, it's happening. Our kids come and tell us that it's happening. And as a result of this, you're seeing, well, tell us, what do you see as a result of this stand back? It's step forward, stand back?
Standing back.
Step forward, standing back.
And taking the data. What do you see happen as a result of that? Do we see less bullying, or that the nature of it is less intense?
Well, that's where you run into issues with interpreting your data. And what we've tried to do with this is be very conservative. And you're exactly right that I have had administrators say to me, well, we don't want anybody to know about this because this looks like we have bullying all over the place. Yeah. Well, there's a huge majority of kids that get bullied, whether you report it or not. Yeah. And, you know, the issue is adults don't see it. Kids do. And the standard for disciplinary action and bullying in public schools is pretty high. So there's not a lot of interaction that's going to rise to that level. And right now we put the onus all on teachers to deal with it, you know, report to a teacher. But what's the teacher going to do? You know, she hasn't seen it. She has no evidence. It's he said, she said. You know, there aren't really effective consequences. And so what happens is then the kids, you know, the victim has reported, there's no real consequence. You know, the victim is not being supported at all. Mm-hmm. And the bully's angry. So the victim's exposed and the teacher's not seen as an ally anymore. So we take the burden off the teacher by taking the bully out of the equation. Mm-hmm. We teach our kids not to report. We don't name names. That's the victim's prerogative. If they want to do that, they can. But what we do is we step in at the point where the bullying happens and we support that victim.
Love it.
Okay.
How does it support students with autism spectrum disorders?
Well, that's where my heart lies, you know, and that's where the program came from. Right. And what happens with those kids, and I'm sure you all have seen that as well, is that they struggle socially, and they're often victimized because they don't know what friendly approaches are.
Right.
Okay. And so they're isolated. They don't really have a peer group. So Stand By Me helps them in two ways. You know, Stand By Me creates a community of kids and we pull in everybody. We can talk about that in a minute about how it works, but we also pull in the bullies. But for kids with autism spectrum disorders, it does two things. Number one, from the time they walk in the building, you can pair them with a Stand By Me member, and that person can walk them to class, they can sit with them at lunch, they can hang out with them outside, and so they're not isolated anymore.
Yeah.
And so for parents who have kids with limited verbal skills and worry every day about what's happening to their child because that child can't report, administrators can say, look what we're doing. Mm-hmm. Look at these interventions. We are supporting all of our students in this building. The other thing it does is that there is a meeting process. You know, the whole program is supported by weekly meetings between the kids and a faculty sponsor. But during that process, once, you know, the kids, the ASD kids, they're immediately supported by members, but they also can join the group, okay, as full members. The strategies that we use are really simple. They're very concrete. They're easy to learn, and these kids can master them. They don't require a lot of judgment. They don't require a lot of subtlety. They're easy to master, and these kids can do it. And then in the weekly meeting, what happens is that there's a constant evaluation process of what's bullying. You know, is this teasing? Is it bullying? Does it make a difference? Because it hurts our feelings anyway. You know, this happened to me this week. You know, it's basically one social interaction after another. You analyze it, you talk about it, you come up with solutions for it within the context of your peer group. So it's an ongoing social skills program.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Because, you know, in education, it should always be about educating. And a lot of times we make this assumption that people know the right thing to do. But we've given a mixed message to our kids in the classroom, because sometimes when a kid intervenes and they intervene in the wrong way and they get caught up in it, then they get punished along with everything. So a lot of times parents have said, stay out of it.
Right.
It's not your problem, stay out of it. Don't you get involved, but that leaves the bully to bully and the victim to be left on their own. What I love is when we take kids, we have kids who we know are driven by attention and they want to and praise, and when we give them an opportunity and give them skills, then they step up. So, and then it creates a network around our kids with ASD. So I think this is brilliant, but, and I think your teachers probably love it too.
They do.
I'm sure.
They do.
But how does this get into the classroom? What's the path? If a parent is watching this and they go, oh, why don't we have this at my child's school? What path would you tell them to get the book themselves and read the book and then go and try to start the program? What's the easiest way to get this into the school?
Well, parents are critical, and this really does pull parents into the process. You know, we've done the pilot program, the book is out now, and we are trying to get the word out and trying to get it in public schools. Parents can take this information to their school boards, they can make presentation to their school boards, they can talk to the campus principals, and I think they can be part of the implementation process. I don't know if you want to talk about kind of how that works on a campus.
Sure.
But basically, what we do, we try to recruit everybody into this program. You get the word out, you have a contest for a badge design that all the members wear. You announce it in all the classrooms, you have an assembly, however you can do it. And then there's an application process that they go through. And we do the application not because we want to exclude kids, but we want kids that have a commitment, that are willing to put the work in order to be a part of the program. But it doesn't require academic prowess. It doesn't require athletic prowess. You don't have to have any special talents except for a desire to help other people. This is how we get the bullies in there. Because they're often kids with leadership skills that don't have a way to express it. So we pull them in, and then we require that the kids stay discipline-free in order to be a part of the program. So when we get all the kids in, we get the application process done, there's an interview, just like you all are doing with me. And so when you get 5th through 8th graders that have never done this, you know, this is a formal interview. You have adults on the other side of the table. You have the kid in there, and this is kind of where our training begins, because they are very supportive of the kids during the process, but the kids are kind of anxious about it, and they have to answer a lot of questions about their own background, whether they've bullied other kids, why they want to be in the program. They have to get a recommendation from an adult. And so they're supported through that interview in saying things, speaking up, you know, speaking clearly, speaking their minds. And so they get used to doing things that are difficult. That's the beginning, an introduction to it. And so then when that's over with, there are 2 different kinds of acceptances. If you have a clean disciplinary history, that's one kind of acceptance, and you're fine, you're good to go, you know, you get your badge and you go do your training. If you have any kind of disciplinary referrals, you have to be discipline-free for 6 weeks. So what we say is, we want you in this program. We think you can do it. This is the only thing that's keeping you from getting your badge. We want you to come to meetings. We want you to participate. We want you to experience this. And so what we do is we give all of the faculty high-five cards. And the kids have an opportunity to do community service for anybody in the building in exchange for a high-five card. And that's 1 day off of their 6 weeks period. So we support them in staying discipline-free. And so the parents can be a part of all of this application process. You know, it's easy to train. You can train kids in less than an hour to do this. You can train your faculty in 30 minutes in a staff meeting. You can train your faculty sponsors in 2 hours. And so it's affordable, you know, for the cost of the book. It's sustainable for staff turnover because you can retrain your own faculty. It gives you data, which is a requirement in public schools. But parents can be involved in supporting that faculty sponsor. They can go to meetings, they can help with data. We have a website where the campus groups can blog post. Kids are not allowed to post, but faculty sponsors post. Parents can help in that process, and kids have reading privileges.
Love it.
You know, so they can help, and then the faculty sponsors can post, the parents can help with that. The other thing this does, again, is this gives parents information about what the school is doing and actively involves them. So, you know, if kids come up with solutions for bullying problems that they see in the building, and they do that all the time, if adults don't try to step in and tell them what to do, they do great. You know, we just shut them down. If we start giving them our ideas, they just don't want it. And so parents can be a part of nurturing that process. But it gives parents confidence that their kids are engaged, that their kids are supported, that the school is serious about, you know, meeting that obligation to have anti-bullying programming.
Which is so important. So you have a website, and Samantha's going to put it up on the screen right now, standbymeforschools.com. The book is Stand By Me. It's empowering bystanders to end bullying in schools. I think this is absolutely remarkable. And where can they get the book? Can they get the book on your website?
Yes, the publishing company AAPC is the company that did produce the book, and so you can get it on the AAP website. That's also a great resource for any information about kids with autism spectrum disorders. You can get it on Amazon. And I think there's a link on my there's a link on my website.
And the book is all they need to start the program.
That's it.
It's got all your forms and everything in the book.
Yes,
so that you don't have to create anything.
You don't have to create anything. And if you go to my website, I actually have a forms link. So there's a thank you page. If you put your information in the thank you page, it sends you a code to download forms from the website. So you need to have to photocopy the book.
Great.
Amazing. Thank you so much for
It's
this
a great program.
and
Thank
for
you.
being here with
So
us.
needed.
Absolutely. Let everybody spread the word, because
Thank
wouldn't
you.
that be an amazing thing if we could start having a lot less bullying on the school campuses? It'd be
That
good
was the
for
result
everybody.
of the students themselves.
Yes,
that's
absolutely.
it. It's all the
Right.
kids.
It's the kids,
Amazing.
and that's where it should be.
Yeah.
All right, so check it out, get the book, get this started, spread the word. We're going to take a break, and we're going to be back to finish out the show. Stick with us.
Got bruises, aggression, and how to handle it. Got bruises? Of course you do. And if you don't, you may sometime in the future. I remember I used to be covered in bruises. My son's tiny little sharp teeth would inflict all kinds of blue marks all over my arms, and people would say, "Does your husband beat you?" Aggression in autism is connected to what I call the 3 H's: health, habit, and help me. So what do I mean by that? Health is really an underlying issue in autism. There are more studies that show that autism is linked to a dysfunctional immune system. And when you tackle that with medical treatment, special diets, things like that, aggression can improve greatly. In your area, there are different doctors that are going to specialize in autism. Mainstream pediatricians, mainstream doctors aren't really that much of help. Habit is very, very ingrained in people with autism. We know this. Sometimes that's a strength, sometimes it's a weakness. So when people with autism are getting that negative attention, getting the excitement from being aggressive against someone, it's hard to break that. This is when you should get some professional advice in. Perhaps your ABA provider or someone else can help you break that cycle and redirect so that they don't keep finding aggression so much fun. Third of all, help me. Aggression is actually an attempt to communicate for some people with autism, especially those who have a hard time with verbal language. So that's when it's really important to get that extra step to get them a means of communication, be it an iPad, be it perhaps a letter board if you're in a low technology country where you can't access a lot of things. It's very important so that they can at least communicate their basic needs. They might be in pain. Someone might be unfortunately abusing them. That does happen. So take it seriously. Aggression isn't just aggression. There's usually an underlying cause. Now, I would caution you because autism and stubborn do tend to go together. It's important to not let your child get too much control of things, too much control of the family, because when they get too willful, that leads to some really long-term problems. Get your parenting in order and tend to that aggression before it turns out to be too much for you. You may have bruises now, but it won't last forever. When I talk to my son now, he looks back and he says, I can't believe I did that to you, Mom. I'm really sorry. I'm like, well, just let me have a few French fries off your plate and we're going to call it even.
Welcome back. And we decided to keep Dr. Cohen with us because I had more questions during the break. And one of my questions was, is it just 5 through 8?
Right. What grades?
And no, that's not true. I was telling them during the break that it started at that grade level because that was the principal that took a chance on me and took a chance on the program. And so what we did, we started at 7th and 8th grades, and then we expanded it down to 5th and 6th grades. This program is easily expandable up to high school, and it's easily expandable to the lower grades. But we don't have the pilot data on that.
Okay.
I feel sure that it would work just as well and just as easily. But that's why we have that grade, the grade range that we have on it. So.
I love what the back of your book says, and I'm just going to read this. Bystanders. The majority of children are neither victims nor bullies, but bystanders. They fuel the bully through the validation of their presence. They are the audience conferring power on the actor. Most children are disturbed by what they see, but afraid of the consequence of action. That inaction itself has consequences and the feelings of powerlessness that ensue. If they only knew what to do, how to intervene, they could make a profound difference.
Well, there's an entire, in psychology, they talk about the Kitty Genovese effect, about, that the famous case of if somebody is yelling for help and no one reacts, and there's multiple, many studies about this and about what to do and what not to do. But when we're talking about school age things, I do think that there is this powerlessness that everybody feels like, well, this has just been going on forever. And as I had said before, I have run into people who say, well, kids will be kids, which I think is the most destructive thing. It's a way of saying, well, we're going to allow it.
Yeah.
I went through it. I was bullied, so everybody's going to have to go through it.
It's a fact of life,
Yeah, it's unacceptable way of looking at things.
I agree.
We don't see this in the animal kingdom. This is not something that has to be. It's a very weird thing for me. Anyway, we're thrilled that you came
all the way
here.
from Texas,
and thank you.
This is a terrific program.
Yes, and so definitely make sure that you're checking it out. I always say that at this time of the year, now that everybody's settled in at school, that it's a great time to gift your teacher something. Now, sometimes it's that they need crayons. Sometimes they need tissues because it's going to be a long winter and everybody's, going to need, right? And I would say, but, I do think that teachers notice when you gift them something. What a great gift to give this to your principal, right? Just give this to your principal. That's what I'm going to do this week.
Okay.
Anyway, so a wonderful thing. And again, we can get this book. We can go to AAPC Publishing, which is aapcpublishing.net, and you can get the book, but it's also available on Amazon.
Yeah,
correct.
Very affordable
Very
program
Yes.
and a notebook. Love it.
Tell us what's on the show tomorrow.
Yeah, so tomorrow we have a big show. We have Bonnie Yates on the show talking about special education, and in particular, a question that we had from more than one, I cannot even believe this, but the school year has started, and I have a couple of viewers have written in and said that their school district have still not offered them a placement, so their children still aren't in school, and it's in different states.
That's amazing.
So Bonnie is going to be talking about what you do when people are giving you the runaround and not giving you a placement because legally you have the right to vape, and they don't get to do that. So that we'll be talking about that. Then we have a lovely young woman who identifies herself as being on the spectrum, who's going to talk from a personal point of view about feeding issues. and about sensitivity to different textures
That'll give us
and
some
what
good
it is
insight
like
on
for
what
her.
So that'll give us good insight to our kids
So
and what kinds of issues.
very
we go
excited.
through.
I don't think we've ever done that on the show.
No.
We've certainly talked about feeding issues, but not with a person on the spectrum
that
giving
can give us insight
their,
as to why
yes.
those issues exist.
Yes, so that's going to be wonderful.
Okay, great.
So all of that, plus, of course, we'll be doing our jargon of the day and
Right.
so on and so forth.
Right. Okay.
And we've got a minute left,
Oh.
so I just want you to tell folks about Denim and Diamonds and Stars and who you're honoring.
Yes, it's October 7th. We're honoring Richard Schiff from The Good Doctor, the Emmy Award-winning actor from The West Wing, who also happens to be the father of a son with autism.
And I love what he says about his son always. He says that his son is his hero.
Yes.
What a wonderful, I get goosies
And
whenever
we're
I
honoring
think about
Joanne
that.
Laura, who's been on this show many times, of Autism Works Now
Love
and
her.
Autism Movement Therapy, and Rose Van Weerheijn from the Golden Heart Ranch, which
Who's
is the
also been on the
community. She's also been on the show, which is a community that's geared towards young adults with autism.
Wonderful. So a fabulous, fabulous
Yes.
evening. We will be there on the red carpet so that you will get to see all the red
You can
carpet
go to
action.
act-aday.org for tickets.
Yes.
And it is a fundraiser, so the prices are, a little steep, but it's a fundraiser.
And it is a fun fundraiser.
A fun fundraiser.
A good time will be had by all. And
Right.
for those of you who live far away, you'll be able to watch at least the red carpet leading up to the
Yeah.
evening live on Facebook with us.
Okay, that'll be great to have you there.
It will be lovely to be there. We're really excited about it. But if you can get there,
Mm-hmm.
if it's something that's in your budget to do, the ticket price, you still have a few tickets left.
Yes, we do.
People could still come, and it really is a wonderful evening
Right.
where you get to do a lot of fun things. And there are some fun auction things too that you guys
we have
auction
great
off.
silent and live auction items, and
I love it's right before the holidays, and so
Right.
if you have somebody, that person that's very hard to gift for, or if you're wanting to spend money, that some of the travel
Mm-hmm.
packages that you guys have, you can get travel arrangements at so much less of a price than you could on the open market.
Right.
Plus, that money is
we have
going to
some
autism.
exciting live auction items this year that are travel packages.
Wow. I mean, I'm always amazed when I see what's
Yeah.
available, and people are able to go on these incredible trips for so much less than you
Right.
could ever do it. And the money goes to autism, so you gotta love that. All right, we're totally out of time, but want to thank all of you for being with us. I'll be here back tomorrow, as we said, with another show. Until then, give your kiddos a hug from me.
And yourselves a hug from me. Bye-bye from now.
Bye-bye.